I'm Lucy Moran. I'm Associate Director of Consulting and Programming here at Texas Women's University, and we are so very glad everybody could join us. I think I've got all our panelists on video, but if there's anybody hiding out here that is a panelist that I have the wrong name for on my list, let me know. But I am expecting a couple more, so as people roll in, but we'll get started and just kind of have some conversations here as we go. I did send out the cheat sheet to our panelists ahead of time, so they sort of kind of know what I'm going to ask. Students, if you want to drop questions in the chat, or we'll definitely have time for Q&A at the back end here. But first we'll start, and I would just like everyone to kind of introduce themselves, tell about who you are, where you currently are, and what your current role is, and just a brief summary of your experience. And Angela, since you're on the short time frame, I'm going to let you jump in and start on that.
Sure, thank you, Lucy. So my name is Angeles Villarreal. I'm originally from the border area from El Paso, Texas. I was born in Mexico, but I've been here in DC for almost 25 years. I graduated from University of Texas at El Paso, and I got my bachelor's degree there in computer science. And then I decided I wanted to do something different. So I got my master's in economics and at UTEP. And I was able to get this job here in DC at Congressional Research Service through a recruiter that went from Washington, DC to my the career office at UTEP. I've been here ever since. And actually I was here for 4 years, and I went back to El Paso, and I really missed DC, and I was able to come back. So it's a great job. I work on US-Mexico or US-Latin America economic relations.
Thank you. That's exciting. And shout out for career services, and
yeah, definitely. I highly recommend it.
That take advantage of your the employers we bring on campus, because you never know what a wonderful experience that is. We also have Wendy White joining us as a panelist, so she will take herself on video and jump in. I'm going to move on to Claire next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually, at least. And thanks to Angeles and to Lucy for including me. And I was from Virginia, and then went away for a while. And I went to graduate school actually in Austin at UT. And so I will put in another plug for the career services, because back then, people hadn't really thought about too much. I don't think, at least in my program, hadn't been promoting too much. It was more state focused, like let's work in Texas government. But there was a kind of also a push to try to go to Washington and consider it. And I think I found a great opportunity to do an internship at the Department of Education, which I had studied Latin American studies. So I didn't think it was a perfect fit, but I needed a paid internship. And I worked with actually the migrant workers, like Office of Migrant Education. So that was really cool, very interesting. And then ultimately decided that, working on foreign affairs would be more of my interest, but it was still a neat, chance to see Washington. And I also work with Angeles, and I'm one of the people that covers the political side of Latin America. And I work on relations with Mexico and Venezuela. Those are the two big countries. And yeah, and for a while I was a recruiter through the Partnership for Public Service. I went around to various colleges and talked about when they had money. I think it ended in 2010, but for 4 or 5 years, we went to talk about the different programs you can do when you come out of undergrad, and then when you come out of master's program. So I would highly plug the Partnership for Public Services website, because I think they still do resume help and things like that. And they may help you find opportunities that you didn't know existed based on where you are in your schooling.
I love hearing everybody's journeys. It fascinates me, because nobody's, I won't say nobody, rarely are people where they thought they would be. when they started out. So Nina, if you'll go next, that would be great. And then we'll jump in with Wendy here after you.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Lucy. So hey, everyone. My name is Ngeen. I am actually originally from DFW. I was born in Grand Prairie, but grew up in Missouri, actually, and went to college in Missouri. But then after I graduated, moved back to Dallas. And my first role was through an AmeriCorps program called Reading Partners. And I worked as a literacy tutor at an elementary school in South Dallas, where I tutored K through 5th grade students with just their reading and writing skills. So I worked with like students that were falling behind on those skills. And I did that for an entire school year. And, you know, for me, when I got out of college, so I majored in English. I thought I wanted to become a teacher. And when I did, when I worked at Reading Partners, I realized that I still wanted to like make an impact in the lives of students, but not in teaching anymore. But for me, I found that you could still like work in that type of field, doing like community service work, education-based work outside of the classroom. So after that, I worked for the Dallas Public Library for a few years, doing managing like different community-based programs, gained a lot of experience doing that. And then that led me to my current role at City Year, which is an education-based nonprofit, also an AmeriCorps program, where I work as a recruiter. And what we do is we partner with different public school districts in 29 different cities like DC and in Dallas. And we hire AmeriCorps members to work as mentors and tutors. So I'll go to like different campuses like TW and different colleges here in DFW to recruit people that may be interested in that position that we hire at City Year.
Thank you. And yes, he's a face that has been on our campus a few times. Been a hot minute since we've had people on campus. But Wendy, are you having some technical issues there with the sound? Looks like we might be. So, well, we'll circle back to Wendy when she's up and running and got sound going. I know sometimes the browsers can block you, and you would think 18 months into this that we would know everything about there is about Zoom and all that. But okay, she's going to come in on a different channel here. Let's see if we can get her coming in, give her a chance to connect. Just a bit patient. I always wonder why Zoom takes a minute to connect to audio. So, all right. Miss Wendy, can you hear us now, and can we hear you? No. All right, we will circle back to Wendy. And my first question for our panel, and we can just go in order, is what experience did you have in your collegiate career or professional or extracurricular that helped you get your foot in the door or started down your path? What was that pivotal point for you?
I'll go ahead and go first since I'm going to need to sign off early. I think for me, it was really developing a relationship with one of my professors and also my career counselor at the university. So they happened to be married. And so the counselor helped me get into economics. And we had a lot of discussions about what I wanted to do, what my background had been, what my bachelor's was. And then he recommended that I choose the economics route instead of business administration. And his wife was one of my favorite professors. She was a macroeconomics teacher. And so by speaking to them, you just never know, as you mentioned earlier, where you're going to wind up and how you're going to get there. And for me, it was that relationship. The recruiter from CRS, Congressional Research Service, where I work, went to El Paso, but it was during Christmas break. So it was very early in the new year. And I happened to see my professor and my counselor at the mall when I was Christmas shopping, and they didn't know how to get a hold of me. And so they told me that they had this recruiter coming to El Paso, and they wanted me to interview with them. and I didn't know what CRS was or anything. And I just decided I'm just going to go and see what it's all about and interview. And it was by far the hardest interview I've ever had. But I went ahead and did it anyway. I think taking a risk is really important, especially when you think you don't qualify or you don't know what it is. You just don't know where all the different opportunities you get, where they're going to lead to. And I was very surprised when they offered me the job. It was a 3-month position, and then it ended up turning into a full-time career for 24 years. So that's how I got to where I am right now.
Okay, I don't mean to, is it on now? Okay. So yeah, I guess I would say the same thing. I mean, I am really grateful that when I was in undergrad, I had a couple of chances to do what they call like service learning trips, like short-term things to go to different countries and sort of really enjoyed like being with like actual people and talking to people and getting to know their stories. And so I always thought I was going to work more like in direct service with people rather than, you know, kind of far away, like at the federal level, trying to create international policy. So one experience I had that was really cool was going to spend a year, like if you haven't had a chance, and I know with COVID, it's been impossible to have any experiences, you know, outside of where you live because it's just not safe. But once things get back, hopefully to, you know, regular life, whether you, you know, like you said, one of the other panelists said, like whether you volunteer where you live and you meet, you know, people who've been refugees, other countries, and you hear their stories and you get to know them, or whether you have the opportunity. I spent 1.5 years in Ecuador, and it was just great, you know, to be with people whose experiences were completely different than mine, and doing direct service with them, and kind of like you said, like then I realized like I can do this. Like this is, I mean, I'm a people person. I love being with people, but I think maybe this isn't the way I'm supposed to help these people. Like I still want to help these people in some way in my career, but I don't think it's like working here in this barrio in Ecuador for the rest of my life. So, you know, it led to needing to go back to school, but at least I knew that I had tried something kind of out of the box, living in a different country, or whatever it is for you that's kind of a little bit maybe uncomfortable. Just having that experience makes you kind of not just like everyone else, you know, it makes you kind of, when people talk to you, you can always share an experience that's, you know, your own, and your own experience that's unique. So I think, you know, taking that risk is probably worth it if you can.
Yeah, and I think for me, so I mentioned that when I was in college, you know, I in the back of my head, like for the longest time, I thought I wanted to go through the teaching route, and just naturally as an English major, that was like the first thing that just kind of came up to my head as far as pursuing something as a career. But my senior year in college, I actually volunteered at the local Boys and Girls Club in my college town, where I worked as like a creative writing tutor. And that, during that experience, made me like realize that I could like do this type of work, whether that was going to be teaching or just something very similar. And you know, for me, it was just like making connections with like students that I was like tutoring in, and just seeing them like discover something new or just learn something new that I was teaching them, which for me was just very personally fulfilling. And I realized that like career-wise, I wanted to you know, to work in a field where I was like personally and professionally doing something that was fulfilling to me, and doing something that, you know, I personally believe in, which later became like, you know, wanting to work with like education-based nonprofits and to promote educational equity. So after that, you know, volunteering experience, you know, I mentioned again, like I worked at Reading Partners and as an AmeriCorps member. And I also realized, like, if for folks on this call, especially the students, if you're not familiar with AmeriCorps, it's essentially like it's the domestic version of the Peace Corps. So you're not, most AmeriCorps programs are paid, so like you're not volunteering, you're getting paid a stipend. So it's definitely a great way to like gain experience that way.
Thank you. We do have the rest of our panelists here. I neglected to see that our phone guest was Chad from Denton State Supported Living and his partner Laura. And then we also have Wendy if she has been able to unmute. So Wendy, can we start with you? Are you able to unmute now? All right, we'll try Chad or Laura.
How can you hear me, Lucy?
Yes, hi Chad. If you'll
Hey, how you
just
doing?
quickly introduce yourself. I'm sorry I missed you on that first round. Introduce
Not a
yourself
problem.
and then answer that question of what pivoted you towards where you are.
You bet. Well, yeah, my name's Chad Stensley. I'm a special projects coordinator here for the Denton State Supported Living Center. My history came up as far as my career. I came through the private side. So I'm literally about 7-8 months into the public service side, but I've always worked in a helping profession, and that's what has been in healthcare. So I believe we're focused on that second question, what experience, whether it was academic, professional, or extracurricular, helped you get your foot in the door, or helped you get in getting started in your respective field. I'd have to say, really, I didn't know anybody out here when I did my interviewing, and so at the end of the day, it really had to do with a robust resume and being able to support whatever you have listed in your resume with or under your KSAs with real world experience. Now, from a college perspective, I always encourage students to get their foot in the door wherever they can, especially on the public service side. And for that first 6 months, really do a great job. Number one, because it's the probationary period. Get yourself through the probationary period. But number two, it's going to help you bound forward in other opportunities, especially within a campus like the Denton State Supported Living Center or within the larger umbrella of the Health and Human Services Commission. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chad. I know you brought Laura with you. Laura, do you want to jump in on that?
Hello, my name is Laura Murray. I am the talent acquisition strategist for the Health and Specialty Care System within the Health and Human Services Commission. So we do, my partner and I do talent acquisition for all of the 24 state facilities within the Health and Specialty Care System, which is comprised of the state supported living centers, and Chad is at our state supported living center in Denton, and the state hospital system, which is an inpatient psychiatric hospital system for different types of commitments. I would say I have been as a state employee for over 25 years. It's very rewarding. It's the kind of career that you can have where you can really move up just by dedication and years of service, along with the people that you work with along the way. I think nurturing those relationships is very important in any aspect of your career, but especially I find with state government, it really is a lot about who you know and the connections that you make along the way. So if you were getting into state government, I would say stick it out for the long haul. I know that some people start with a state job and then they may leave and go to private sector. If you do decide to do that, do not withdraw your retirement, because 10 years with the state of Texas and you're fully vested. So even if you work for 3 years and you go to private sector, you come back and work for another 7 years and you have a second retirement. Those are the types of benefits that we find here at the state. But our job is very challenging, but it's also very rewarding because we are helping the most underserved population in our state. And so I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Laura. We appreciate that. And yeah, I'm hearing a lot of themes of networking. Wendy, are we able to get you now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful. Just briefly introduce yourself and jump in. That'd be great.
Oh, sorry about that technical difficulties this morning. My name is Officer Wendy White. I'm the Frisco Police Department, or I'm at Frisco Police Department. I'm a recruiter here, and I've been a recruiter for a little over a year, maybe almost 2. So my job is basically talking to potential applicants about a position, not so much just about police officer work, but that's my majority of my people that I come in contact with, but we also have tons of other jobs and opportunities here at the Frisco Police Department. So I try to network and reach out to these potential applicants so I can help them fulfill what they're looking for in a job or a career.
Well, great. Wendy, if you'd share with us just a little bit of how you got where you are and what set you down that path.
I've been a police officer for 23 years. So it's been a long road, but honestly, it's gone fast as well. So I was a police officer in Rapid City, South Dakota. I moved to Texas 10 or 11 years ago. And I was a police officer in Rockwall for quite a few years. After Rockwall, I decided to come to Frisco. Frisco is, I don't know if anybody knows, but it's a very up and coming community. It's growing. The department is growing as well. Gave me a lot more opportunities here. So I chose to come to Frisco, and I've been here for a couple of years now, 3 years. How it came to be, honestly, I'm pretty outgoing person, and I love talking to people. I love my job right now. It's amazing. I learn a lot about people and talk to people from all over the United States. And what we hear on the news is what all the feedback that I'm getting, whether it's, defund the police, if it's, hey, I need to get out of this department, they're having mandates. That's my biggest thing right now. But it's just kind of amazing to talk to these people and connect with them, and they're wanting to come to Texas. So I'm getting bombarded as we speak.
I'm a Frisco resident. I work in Denver. So I want to say I appreciate all that y'all do. And I see you out and about, and it's definitely an interesting time in your area right now. I'm going to move on. I'm going to skip our next question because we've talked a bit about net. I really like to focus on what are a couple of the key skills that, whether hard or soft skills, that you think are vital in your work and important for students to be building on as they enter their career fields.
Okay, I'll jump in because I'm going to be signing out in a couple of minutes. And I think one thing for me that I didn't really have when I was going to school, or that I was more involved like in more of the academic work. I mean, doing a lot of math and science, those were my strengths, but I didn't have the communication skills. And so I didn't focus that much on communication skills. And I think in this day and age, when there's just so much, online, like we're doing right now in presentations, I think having communication skills in addition to your schoolwork, whatever your focus, whatever you're majoring in, is really important, because it does open doors, and it helps you communicate who you are inside and what skills you have, like what technical skills you have. You might have the skills, but you may not be able to say that you have those skills. So I think being able to communicate that is really important, and practice interviewing with other people. Just do it over and over and over again. And that'll just help increase those skills and also increase your confidence in yourself, because I think we all have something really important to give. All of us are very different, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and focus on your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses. But if you recognize your weakness, try to build that up, especially in communicating, because sometimes for an interview, you only have one chance. You only have that 30-minute interview or that hour interview. And you only have that one chance for what could be your dream job. And if you don't know how to recognize and be aware of your strengths or what your background is, and you can't communicate it, they're not going to know who you are. So I do think communication skills, presentation skills are very important. I'm sorry I can't stay on very much longer, but it was a pleasure being here with you today, and thank you for asking me to participate.
Thank you so much. And thank you definitely for all your input. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Claire?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for all of whatever you're studying, I think that, you know, trying to learn how to, I mean, if you want to have a job in any field, I think being able to communicate in writing too, like working on your, especially if you want to go into a government, like in the kind of agency that Angeles and I work at, or anything international, like speaking more than one language, that helps you as a police officer too. I mean, it helps in all of these different fields we're talking about. And I think being able to write is one of those skills that, like, if someone comes to us and they've already gone through their master's program and they can't write, you know, it's a real struggle to teach people how to do that. So not being afraid to take a class where maybe you're going to get a bad grade because the teacher's known to be hard, but they care, you know. And so I'm not sure how large your university is, but if there are professors that are nice and are willing to take the time with you to do, you know, some tough reviews of what you write. And one last thing is taking opportunities. And even if it's like, I tell students, you know, you can take an internship and only do it 20 hours a week and then be bartending or babysitting or whatever you have to do to make ends meet, because not everybody can find something paid or can afford to do an unpaid internship. But, you know, they don't know that you only worked for me at CRS virtually from, you know, for 20 hours a week. I'm not going to say that, you know, I'm going to talk about how great you were for the 20 hours you were with me. So I think one of the benefits of COVID maybe is that I was able to have an intern this summer from Denver who probably couldn't have come otherwise. So there are ways of, you know, just asking if you want to work with somebody and you find an organization that looks interesting. Don't be afraid to try, because I think that'll help.
Can you hear me, Lucy?
Yes, who was going? Was it Neen? Are you going next, or we have chat?
You know, I think some of the soft skills that I think are important to develop right from the get-go is kindness and attentiveness to the moment you're in, because that, as you build upon those minutes and that time, that's what leaves your legacy with your coworkers in your field, because you're gonna grow and you're gonna move forward. But I think the other thing too is on the other side, that's developing a thick skin, because there are things that are not going to go your way. There are things that people are going to say things, are going to do things, and kind of guard your feelings along the way, because it is work and it is a job and it is your career. The only other two things I would say would be your ability to change gears quickly within whatever work environment you're in, and then also consistency in work product, and then communication was also mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Chad. I'm going to jump back to Neen, and then we'll go on to Laura.
So for me, one skill that I always draw upon from my past experiences is, and especially as a recruiter, it's like customer service skills. And I learned like all of my customer service skills from like working a retail job part-time in college. And kind of going back to what Claire was saying, as far as like working part-time jobs, I'll just kind of like expand upon that and say, like, you know, for the students that may only have had like part-time job experiences, like don't shortchange yourself in those experiences, because, you know, any experience is great experience. And especially in the nonprofit world, like you'll have to wear a lot of different hats just through the nature of our work. And, you know, you can definitely build and use those experiences that you've had through, again, like bartending or working in retail. And you may be surprised how relevant those skills can be in the nonprofit world.
Thank you for saying that before we moved on to Laura, because I can't even tell you in working with students who say, well, I just did this. No, there's no just about it. You've learned a lot and you developed skills, but I'll get off my soapbox and go on to Laura.
I would say ditto on those customer service skills. I did waitress and bartend my way through college. So the ability to be able to speak to strangers, off the cuff is very important. I think that's something that you take along with you throughout your life. I would also emphasize your writing skills as part of your communication skill set. If you cannot write a cover letter or fill out a resume and use correct punctuation, you're not going to get a lot of attention for your, on that application or that resume. So I've seen so many resumes that it looks like a fantastic person, and then I read their resume after talking to them and they're just all over the place. So that really comes out in your resume and cover letters. Also, I would say performing due diligence. Whatever career you're interested in or company or anything that you are looking into, really look into it. Make note of who they are, what kind of footprint do they leave, and what you can bring to them. And, if you're looking into state government, what faction of it do you want to work for? What can you bring to the table? All of those things are very important to know going into an interview. Some people actually, some jobs will actually say the ability to understand our division and our regulation and our rules. And a lot of that stuff can be found on the website. So before just going cold into an interview, do your due diligence on that job. The last thing I'd like to add is doing any kind of a volunteer service. I volunteered for years for Habitat for Humanity. And I think that is a very important thing to put on your resume or your state application, because sometimes those skills can actually apply to the position that you're applying for. And it doesn't have to be a paid job. You can work through service or volunteer. And that's also a great way to network as well.
Thank you, Laura. And checks will go out to all of you for saying exactly what I need you to say with the volunteer experience and customer service. Wendy, what would you say the skills are they need?
I agree with a lot of the panel. Definitely writing skills. When an applicant applies with us, obviously we do everything online also, but when they come to a testing, they have to write a biography on themselves. And you wouldn't believe how many people, again, with the spelling and the grammar and how to put sentences together, they don't know how to do that. And that's what we look for in an applicant, because you're going to have to write reports. And so that's one thing that it's kind of important to be a police officer is your writing skills. Also, definitely with being a police officer, we have to be a good communicator, obviously. Very good. We have to have very good listening skills. So I think all of the points that were made by the panel are on point and very correct. So, and also somebody had mentioned the language. Definitely, we're finding more and more people that speak different languages. And so we're having a lot of language barriers. So we do appreciate people that do speak a different language, and we'll actually pay them more for their skills. So we're trying to expand those languages because we're getting so many more people from all over the world. But right now, Spanish, we're looking into other languages as well. So those are all good points. We could definitely use all of those things for applicants to, to make a good person for a police officer job. So other than that, I think you guys hit the main points is what we're looking for. And honestly, we're just looking for good people.
I appreciate the comments about languages because I think our students tend to undervalue their language skills. And we have a lot of students who are multilingual. And I say, put that right up top, put that in your summary. And then especially when it's something beyond, English or Spanish, Texas is an extremely diverse area, and to have that language ability, I think, is only a bonus. So we'll have time for a couple more questions before we open it up for our students. What support have you had during your professional journey? Are there programs, associations? Did you find a mentor? What do you recommend for students in terms of finding their own support throughout their journeys? We'll start with Claire.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a little bit hard for our job because we don't, I think Angeles is one of our best communicators, honestly, who just signed off. I think our job is one where people have to be pretty self-motivated and they have to kind of keep themselves. And the Hill is a place that can be sort of, with everybody being polarized and everybody being, a lot of it's, I think, political mentors. So like if you're this party, then you go with that person. And if you are that party, but when you're nonpartisan, when you're supposed to be in the middle, trying to be, level-headed with everybody, I think talking to people who've done your job for like longer than you have, and also for me, sometimes having a mentor who's not in my field, who may, I talk to and I complain. I'm like, oh, I don't like this about my job or that about my job. And they're, I have friends who are adjunct professors and they can't get tenure, and it's really tough. And they have a PhD, right? And I don't even have that. And so they say, but you're so lucky because you have a federal job or a state job. Like those jobs are actually, when you're young, you may look at them and say, wow, I don't know if it's super exciting to work in the federal government because I'm 25 and I want to do something exciting and change the world. But when I was 29, this is what I used to say in my recruiting talks, like, it's not that bad to have health insurance and to have vacation and to have a stable paycheck, like, and to be able to help people, to believe in public service, like that still exists. And I think, so for me, like having people sometimes who are in where you work is good, but also maybe having somebody that you just kind of do a gut check with, like who's not in your line of work, but in something related. And they can say, hey, there's no shame in staying at the same job for 15 years, like if you love it, or 20 years, like it's actually awesome. Like, I think that's helpful to me because I'm at the age where I'm kind of like questioning things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 40 something and I might have to do this for 20 more years. Like, can I do that? Like even my generation was not used to signing up at 25 and staying to 65. That scares the heck out of me, but maybe if you don't think of it like, you just take it one day at a time. And are you still happy in this job? Then maybe it's fine to stay, it's not a bad thing, so.
I think for me, I've been really lucky in my professional career, especially early on, where I've had managers just eventually kind of become mentors for me. And I don't know like what that, like the secret sauce to that is. I think maybe it's just, some supervisors will just, see something special in you and want to, extend an offer to become more than just a manager, right? So, I have like one former supervisor that we still keep in touch, and she's always been like a champion of me in my professional journey. Always willing to like write a reference for me, no questions asked. And that's been important in my professional career for sure. And sometimes like you just have a great manager, but and I think now, like just even in college, like one of my professors became a mentor for me as well. And maybe it's just through like repeated exposure to someone or a person, and they just eventually, just want to become a mentor for you. But then the other part of it as well, the other part of the question, as far as like what other supports I have found here at City, or one thing that we do that I am very grateful for is we have different affinity groups at our workplace. So I identify as Asian American, and we have an Asian American affinity group, and that community, that support system has been like super great for me, just being in community with other people that identify with what I identify with, as far as like being like identity-based, race-based identity. And if you have like those groups, in your workplace, or even on campus at TWU, like you'll find like you can network through that support system, and just building community is important for me, and I think that's just an important thing that you can find, like whether through work or just outside of work as well.
Thank you, Chad.
Yeah, thank you. I think that within the Denton State Supported Living Center, one of my projects that I'm working on right now, or the primary project, is hiring now, and then also working with one of my partners here on retention. And I think one of the things that the Health and Human Services Commission does really well, and I can appreciate Laura for this, is they have so many different work groups and teams. We use what's called Microsoft Teams, and so we're technologically very savvy, and we have that support grows weekly. You're invited to a lot of different meetings, and so the knowledge base that's out there within the HHSC and within the SSLC family is really remarkable, because, for instance, here in Denton, there are people that have been here for 40 years. The person before me was talking about longevity and career, maybe it was the gal prior to him. But at the end of the day, people have found a love for what they do, and a lot of that is derived not only with the lives that we're taking care of here, but also the support that the overall umbrella provides. So,
Appreciate that, Chad. Laura?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Chad on being able to find support within the realm of where you are at a state agency, because we do have people that have been here 30, 40 years. I've been a state employee for 25 years, and I still learn every day something new, or oh, you're the one who can do that, that you can help me do this. But also there's external associations, not just, fraternity or sorority type associations, but for instance, there are talent acquisition associations and recruiter associations that are nationwide. And those are good to be affiliated with. In my line of work, I found that there are a wealth of resources that help me do my job better and help me bring innovation forward in our agency. And that's something that I really treasure.
Professional associations and outside can definitely be a great support. Wendy, how about you? What kind of support have you had in your career?
In our career, what I think is really important and what officers might look up to is just good leadership. I mean, very strong leadership skills is what attracts more good leaders. I think that's very important in a police department, to have those skills. Well, going back to mentorship, though, I just want to let you know that what we've kind of gearing towards is mentoring instead of more recruiting. Mentoring meaning getting out into the community, such as, for example, I go to a high school, and it's a career high school where they go and take classes on upcoming careers that they want to go into. So I do a law enforcement class, but I've tried to be more of a mentor in that class. And so we can get some of these young people and these people that are just starting out in their careers and just mentor them to see what path they want to take. So that's kind of our goal. We started that when I first came here. We thought about doing some mentorships at colleges. I've kind of reached out a little bit, but then of course COVID hit, so kind of got pushed to the side. But that's my ultimate goal, is being more of a mentor. Just more getting out of the community into colleges. So just having that one-on-one and that transparency. Going back to, so anyway, that's what we want to do. Hopefully we'll get better as we go. We're still growing. So we also do mentorships with, we have a program for students also to come and do, they learn about police officers. So like it's a program. It's a, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, they come in and they do, they learn about being a police officer. So it's for young adults. So that's also very good for our community and for our department. So so those are some of the things that I really think that are important is definitely leadership. I remember some of my sergeants, there were some sergeants I would not work for. There were some sergeants that, yes, definitely that's the shift I want to work because they have just good leadership skills. And I think it's so important. You can come into a sergeant's position and not be a very good leader. And that's just, it's just not a good environment.
Leadership, no matter where you are, is important. And appreciate your mentoring. My son actually takes classes at the Kate Center. So,
Oh yes, I probably talked to him then.
yeah. So our final question before we let our students ask question is just what advice do you have for a student that is looking to enter state or federal or government or public service work? What can they do?
I mean, the one thing I would say is I'm putting up a couple of things in the chat where it talks about if you are coming out of undergrad, there's a program called Pathways, and that's probably the one that applies most to most of you guys. If you're coming out, like if, let's say you guys decide to get a master's degree, then you could look at the different fellowships that they have called like the one that I did was called the Presidential Management Fellowship. And you can look at that, but it may seem far away because you're, it's 2 more years of school. Like maybe that's not, you should look at whatever you're at in terms of your life and see what opportunities, and also know that I had no idea that there were opportunities to work for the federal government, tons of them in Texas or in a neighboring state. You don't have to move to Washington. In fact, there's probably a lot of great opportunities. I know a lot of people have moved to places like Colorado because they're like, I don't want to work in Washington. If I can telework most of my life, I mean, even people who were based in Washington for 20 years are getting out to places where the cost of living is better, like Texas, and there's just growing communities like it sounds like you guys are living in one. And so I think you should maybe look around, like play, spend some time on the internet. And then if something looks appealing to you, you can sort of, like you said, do some research about like what it looks like and then contact their career offices if you have, or maybe you, probably the career office at your university may know somebody who's an alum who might work there. And don't be afraid to do that because a lot of alums are just really happy to give back and to help you out. And we'll try to open, doors for you if they're there. So that's what I would say is just, kind of look around and be willing to experience new things. I think it's neat that you mentioned city year because there's a guy that I used to know 20 years ago who's the city year person in Washington. I'm pretty sure Jeff Franco. I don't know if you know him, but it's just like, it's a small world. And so like 2 of us panelists don't even know each other, but I think we may have a person in common that we know. Like just realize too that there's like 2 degrees of separation. And so if you put yourself out there, you might find that it's not that hard to kind of network and things like that. I'm happy to, by the way, if any of you all are curious about the federal government, I'm happy to talk to you later on if you want me to. But anyway, thank you.
Appreciate that. And on that note, before we move on to Nina, if anybody wants to share their LinkedIn for students to connect, you can drop that in the chat. Nina, what advice do you have?
Yeah, definitely want to give another plug for AmeriCorps. And the one thing to know about AmeriCorps is like there are so many different AmeriCorps programs. You don't have to, apply for an education-based one like City Year. You could do like natural disaster relief through the National Civilian Community Corps. The acronym for that's NCCC. And also like through AmeriCorps, it also allows you the chance to like just experience something new. And AmeriCorps is in every city, every state, kind of similar to what Claire was mentioning with like the different government programs. So, and they're also like mostly like 1 year 1-year base service contract. So you could just do it for a year, gain a lot of great experience, receive a financial stipend. There's also like an education award, a lot of benefits to it. And also at the end of it, like you're gaining a lot of great experience. And I definitely agree with Claire, like it is a small world, like the nonprofit world, especially here in Dallas. Like I often meet people from when I started in nonprofit to now, and like they're in different positions, and it's great to see people grow at different organizations, and then like you'll connect. That's also like just through the nature of our work, which is community based. So and one last piece of advice I'll just give is just be open to new opportunities. I think we were mentioning on the panel earlier that your first job out of college, or not even just your first job, but like whatever you think your dream job is, that will most likely change throughout your career. Your dream job may be your dream job for like the next 5 years, and then you'll realize like you want to do something else, and that's just natural. That's just part of the professional journey that you'll be on. So.
Internships. I don't know if our audience here is close to being graduates, or if there are maybe some on here that are a little younger. But I found when I was in my undergrad program that looking for internships I did an internship with the Department of Justice, and it was so insightful. So I was able to get that real world experience. You're able to walk into the college student and say, "Hey, I'm here for an internship," and there really isn't any super expectation of you other than you dress nice and you're able to present fairly well, because they want to. Generally, people in government want to help you, and they want to show you what they do. So I would put a lot of emphasis on the internships, helping you decide to getting into a respective field. And then the other piece here is the public, and just something to hang on to here, is the public student loan forgiveness. Obviously, we're all nonprofit. So if you have student loans, that public student loan forgiveness piece is huge, because it will really help. It helps put money back in your pocket because your payments aren't as large. And at the end of that 10 years of 120 consecutive payments, the government.
Oh, did we lose Chad? Laura, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I will say ditto on that public service loan forgiveness program. And in addition to that, if you are going into healthcare, such as a nurse or a physician, there's also opportunities under those professions for loan forgiveness if you're working in a health professional shortage area, which a lot of our facilities are designated as. In addition to that, I would say yes on the internship. The other thing is, I think somebody else had touched on this earlier, but kind of not lowering your expectation, but being willing to accept something other than what you had in mind as you're going forward into the first career search after graduation. Like maybe you have a bachelor's degree or master's degree in public health and you want to work for a public health facility. Well, you might need to accept a job to get in the door, because there's not a lot of people who come straight from grad school into a management position in healthcare. I mean, that's just from what I've seen, it's just not a realistic approach. So you might be willing to get your foot in the door through another avenue, and then work your way up, after a year or two.
That's great advice. We're not going to get that, 6-figure job right out of undergrad, or if you're in higher ed ever. Wendy?
Yeah, I would have to I'm going to piggyback on them. I totally agree. Internships are very important. Unfortunately, we don't have one here at the Frisco Police Department. Hopefully in the future we will, but I think it would help with some of these people coming out of college or in college to get involved and to actually know what they're actually getting into. We get a lot of applicants that think they want to be a police officer, and then they become one, and then they decide that's just not for them. So that was internships is a great opportunity. Also, I do agree with Laura too. I mean, you might have to take something else just to kind of get the feel of things. Like we have positions like as a dispatcher, you learn to be in a dispatcher, you'll learn the city, you learn how to be talk to people, be good communicators if that skill is something that you need work on, or work in our other departments that we hear at the department. So just, I want to emphasize, I mean, just want to piggyback on them. I think all of those points would be very, very beneficial to someone that's looking into a field.
Thank you. We've got panelists are having to roll off here. We want to thank everybody so much for their time today. And I'm going to hang out here for a minute if anybody's got any questions and open it up. We really do appreciate everybody's time today and contributing for stuff for our students to hear. We can say it till we're blue in the face, but it's so much better from you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know we have class times too, so we've lost a few students along the way. But we do make this recording available for them, and we'll post it on our website as well.